It began quietly, with children disappearing from a poor neighborhood in Noida. Parents would file reports, they pled with police and searched the streets, but their cries went unheard. For months, these disappearances were brushed aside as runaways. But in December of 2006, a single house in Nithari village revealed the horrifying truth. Behind its walls lay a story of unimaginable cruelty, a hidden nightmare that would shock the nation and force India to confront how little it had listened to its most vulnerable citizens. This is the story of the Nithari killings, one of the most gruesome crimes in Indian history. Missing children. In the mid-2000s, the families of Nithari village in Noida lived in quiet desperation. Their children were vanishing. One by one, boys and girls disappeared after stepping outside to play, never to return. Parents filed police reports. They begged authorities to investigate, but the response was always the same: your children must have run away. To the police, these were poor families, people whose voices carried no weight. But behind the dismissals, something unspeakable was happening. The House of Horrors. On December 29th, 2006, everything came crashing down. Acting on a tip, police searched the home of Moninder Singh Pandher, a wealthy businessman, and his live-in servant, Surinder Koli. What they found was a nightmare. In the backyard drain and in plastic bags, police discovered bones and skulls, dozens of them. Forensic teams arrived and began digging. Every few hours, more human remains surfaced. Children who had disappeared over the last 2 years, their last moments now revealed in the most horrific way. By the time the search ended, remains from at least 19 victims had been recovered. The monster next door. The investigation revealed that Koli had been luring children into the house with small promises of food, money, or sweets. Once inside, he murdered them with chilling brutality. The remains were then dismembered and dumped into the drains and fields nearby. Pandher's involvement was murkier. Some believed that he participated, others that he simply turned a blind eye. What was clear was that these crimes had gone unchecked for years, just meters away from the families that were begging police for help. Public outrage. When the news broke, India erupted in anger. Parents wailed outside Pandher's house as reporters broadcast live. The scale of these killings, the sheer negligence of the police, and the vulnerability of the victims, poor children whose lives seemed invisible to the system, all combined into a national scandal. The trials. The legal battle would go on for years. Koli confessed, though many questioned how much was coerced. In trial after trial, he was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death. Pandher faced a more complex fate, convicted in some cases whilst being acquitted in others, always under a cloud of suspicion. But for the families, no sentence could undo the loss. Their children were gone, ignored by the very system meant to protect them. A lasting scar. Even today, the story of Nithari lingers as one of India's darkest chapters. It was not only about a killer, but about society's failure, about how poor families were dismissed until their worst fears were literally dug out of the ground. It is a reminder that sometimes the greatest horror is not only what one person can do, but what happens when the entire system refuses to listen. The discovery at Nithari was not just about the bones buried in drains and fields. It was about children who should have been protected, about families who were ignored, and about a system that failed until it was too late. Surinder Koli and Moninder Singh Pandher will forever be linked to a crime that horrified the world, but the legacy of Nithari is larger than the killers themselves. It is a story about inequality, negligence, and how the poorest often suffer in silence until tragedy forces everyone else to see. Even today, the name Nithari carries a weight of sorrow. For the families who lost their children, there can never be true justice. The case stands as one of India's darkest reminders that monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they hide right next door. The acquittal. For years, the Nithari killings were seen as an open and shut case. Surinder Koli, the servant, and his employer Moninder Singh Pandher were convicted across multiple trials, with Koli even receiving several death sentences. For many, that was the end of the story, that two men would forever remain symbols of one of India's darkest crimes. However, in 2003, the case took a dramatic turn. After years of appeals, the Allahabad High Court overturned the convictions of both men. The judges cited major flaws in the investigation, inconsistencies in witness testimony, and a troubling lack of reliable evidence. What had once been presented as an airtight case was now riddled with doubt. The decision stunned the families of the victims. For parents who had lost their children, the acquittal felt like a second tragedy. Many wept outside the courtroom, saying justice had not been delayed, it had been denied altogether. Activists and legal experts were equally divided. Some saw the ruling as proof of how unreliable the original investigation had been, while others called it a devastating failure to hold the guilty accountable. Today, the Nithari killings remain unsolved. The acquittal doesn't erase the horror of what was found in the house, nor does it answer the question of who was truly responsible. Instead, it just leaves behind a void, a case remembered less for the justice it delivered, and more for the endless uncertainty that it created.